This is The Rose Petal Killer, a Peregrine Sebastopol mystery, written by Marc Everitt, narrated by Robert Sebastian Cooper. Other books by Marc Everitt: full-length novels: Restitution Road, Days of Entropy, Book 1, A Pale Horse, Days of Entropy, Book 2, The Dead Earth, Days of Entropy, Book 3, The Chains We Forge, On the Third Night, Planet of Graves, Proteus, The Final Crossing, A Peregrine Sebastopol mystery, short stories, First Contact, Second Chance. Forward. This book tells the story of another of those mysteries investigated by that redoubtable fellow, as recounted to us by his loyal friend, manservant, and sometimes chronicler, Chester Bryers. The start of this story takes place some 3 months after the lurid affair of the murders aboard the SS Atlantica, but 2 months before the time at which we'd had this previous story told to us. For any of you who've read The Final Crossing, there is a 5-month gap between the events of that story and the time Chester narrates this tale. The story of Victorian intrigue, death, and almost insufferably arrogant acts of detection takes place in that small window of time, with remembrances of a previous case from 5 years earlier. If we can please gather all the suspects into the drawing room once again, we can get started. Part 1, in which Sebastopol is arrested. Chapter 1. It had been quite a relaxed evening right up until the Metropolitan Police Force came and arrested us. The fact that this latest atrocity to hit the heart of British high society seemed, for some unfathomable reason, to be the fault of Lord Peregrine Sebastopol himself, only made things that more uncomfortable. Whilst none of the police officers standing before us in the elegant drawing-room of Sebastopol's favoured haunt, the Diogenes Club, had initially dared to actually accuse his lordship of any complicity in the actual crime itself, there was little more than British manners standing between them and the venting of their anger, which was clearly aimed at Sebastopol. I am perhaps getting a little ahead of myself. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Chester Bryers, formerly of Her Majesty's Army, but now lending my modest services to Lord Sebastopol in the capacity of being his gentleman's gentleman. I would not go so far as to term myself his manservant, as God only knows that his lordship has enough of those, but rather I lived my working life, and a good deal of the rest of the time for that matter, in that grey netherworld, which one could not say was entirely vocational nor recreational. I assisted his lordship, that was true, fetching and carrying for him and making the necessary arrangements which his social life required, but I did this as something akin to his friend, albeit one which was paid well for such efforts. I hesitate to say that Lord Sebastopol kept me in his employ through sheer sentimentality, but since the loss of our mutual friend Topper from our company 3 months prior, with him not returning to us when the SS Atlantica docked, and he was taken away in an ambulance, I had noticed that Sebastopol had required my assistance, and perhaps companionship, with more frequency. On our return to England, having spent far too much time on that blighted voyage, we had found little had changed around us, and London was much as we had left it. That had felt unfair, as if the world should have shifted and become something entirely different to pay homage to what we had been through. But of course, this is not what life is like, and we simply had to get on with it as best as we could. Topper was still lying in a hospital bed, insensible and as dead to the world as he had been when he had arrived there. It would be a further 2 months before he would start to show any signs of having his wits back, and I would come to find myself sitting with
Sample complete. Ready to continue?